never works because you need to embrace the self-image of someone that is living the goal that you want and not the one that you adopted to cope with life a long time ago. But honestly, at what point did you decide what you could or couldn't do in your life? And like many of us, you might not remember the exact date or the moment, but what you're realizing now is that you're probably stuck in a role or self-image that you consciously didn't choose, and you're living on autopilot. And so going back to how I grew up in a toxic household, um, I became the go-to person that fixed everyone's problems, and I kept pushing forward like a steamroller. And I carried that well into adulthood, into single motherhood. While I was working as a family advocate, I was attending university and basically handling everything on my own. Later, I found myself in an abusive marriage, um, but I didn't stay in that marriage very long to protect myself and my family. And I knew how to keep moving forward. That's what I was good at, was to just keep moving forward. But yet I was stuck in this cycle of constantly solving everyone else's problems while still managing my own. And I didn't realize that at the time. Because I thought, if I keep changing, keep moving forward, and that's great. And at the time my father had a stroke also, so I took on the role of advocate for my parents' health. So despite thinking that I had moved on physically and mentally and emotionally, my body had not caught up, and it started to reveal the toll of accumulated stress. But that's how our bodies deal with it. And I just thought if I kept moving forward that everything's going to be fine, but I was actually destroying my health because I placed everyone before I placed myself. And that's not going to work. It will never work. Because the body never forgets what the mind tries to ignore. I'm going to say that again. The body never forgets what your mind tries to ignore. So even when I kept pushing forward, my self image trapped me in this constant fight or flight mode, and this unresolved emotional energy got stuck in my body. And that's when I became ill. I started facing a series of health challenges, autoimmune diseases, including two rare life threatening diseases. And after struggling to regain my health and finding that doctors weren't addressing the root cause, which unfortunately doctors do not try to address the root cause. They try to slap a band aid on what's wrong with you and send you on your way. Well, I ended up taking charge of my health, and I studied everything that I could on holistic wellness. It took a lot of determination and a lot of self-discipline, and it did take some time, but I overcame um, my illnesses. And I eventually earned a degree in health and wellness, and that's how I became certified as a holistic health practitioner because I wanted to help people um, get better. And that's what I was doing at the time. And this is very interesting. So, one of the biggest lessons that I learned was that while keeping a positive mindset is really important, it can sometimes backfire on you. If you're only focused on staying positive and not focused on doing um, what you love or just living your life. For example, I filled my home with positive affirmations. They were everywhere, on the computer, my phone, the refrigerator. I constantly watched motivational videos. I read uplifting stories, and I did everything I could to stay positive while I was ill. And however, what I didn't realize was that these affirmations were reminders that I was not okay. you know, because if I truly were, why would I need them? And if I didn't feel positive, I'd layer on this guilt for not being the way that I thought I should be. And then I would monitor my thoughts around the clock and I would feel bad whenever a negative thought crept in. And that became my self-image was I was a sick person who had to be constantly reminded that I was gonna get better. Um, and I believe that many people can relate to this. And I'm here to say that true positivity comes from focusing on what you genuinely love to do and being yourself, because think about it. You don't need reminders around the house that the sun's going to rise each day.